everybody. It is Brewery Underground Podcast, and it is Scott Turon, the Chancellor of Craft Beer, and I'm Steve Sullivan. And Scott, what's going on, man?
What's happening, dude?
What is happening, dude? I'm doing well, and we have to bring in right away. We're not even calling her a guest. We're calling her the star of the show today on the Brewery Underground Podcast. She is our good friend Liz. Every day I'm bubbling. You can catch her on social media. How are you? How are you, my friend?
I am very honored to be here with you all. Excited to talk beer. And thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Hey, how do we know you?
A couple of months ago, I happened to catch our nice, wonderful friends from the Cleveland area saying that they were coming down to Cincinnati, and I shot them a message. And little did I know you guys were all meeting up at a brewery, and I just kind of hopped along. And, you're with friends, you share a beer, and the rest is history.
Here we are.
That's right. You were coming to us live from my hometown of Cincinnati, and we're both West Siders, as we've talked about it so many times. And Scott is going to be maybe bored to death by all the West Side terminology that we're going to do during this podcast, but he's just going to have to deal with it, man.
You may hear me at the very end of this thing and like, oh, he's still here. He didn't leave.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about Cincinnati in this podcast, a lot of beer. But first off, we are going to either open up our beer or talk about what beer we're drinking, as we love to do on the podcast. And I can tell you guys, in the tradition of Cincinnati beer, I am drinking the Rheingeist Pretty Bird. And I haven't even had any yet. How about you guys?
I love that beer. That can, first of all, looks like everybody's ombre. Like, it's awesome. It's beautiful can art. But I think it has like a nice citrus hint afterwards.
It says that it's a pale ale with notes of mandarin orange, melon, blueberry, and peach. And it's a limited release, so I feel special. It's pretty good.
Every time I see or hear that name, Pretty Bird, I think of Dumb and Dumber. With the parakeet's head that popped off. Pretty Bird.
Well, the funny thing about this beer, and I actually had messaged Liz about this a couple of days ago because she had checked it in not long ago. And I'm like, man, I'm jealous. I need to get that. And then I realized I had gotten it a few months ago when I was up there. I just forgot about it because I have so much other beer right now in my fridge. So, all right. So what are you guys drinking?
Liz, go right ahead.
I am drinking from Brink Brewery in College Hill, a Moosie, which is a milk stout. And it is probably my favorite beer from that brewery. And it is a multiple award winner from the Great American Beer Festival. So cheers to that.
Cheers. Outstanding. Well, both of you are drinking Cincinnati beer. I don't have one, but I've got an Indiana beer from Three Floyds. It's called Interstellar Bonanza. So it's a double IPA, and we're going to crack this bad boy open.
All right.
Cheers
again. We love the Three Floyds as well. Good deal. Well, there's a couple of quick things before we talk about our Cincinnati beer, and it's a couple things we want to talk about here in Nashville, back home real quick, Scott, because you and I, over this past weekend, we kind of divided and conquered. You went to Nashville. I went to Murfreesboro. We had a couple things going on. I went to Murfreesboro because there was a few things I wanted to do over the weekend. One of them was I went to Mr. Brews in Murfreesboro because I had to get that peanut butter strawberry Jelly Hill from Southern Grist. They had it on tap, and I haven't had it on tap yet. I only had it in the can. And can I tell you something? I have to honestly say, the cans that I've had, I enjoyed a little bit more. I really did. So,
did you actually like the cans more?
I did. I would say that I still gave it the same rating on Untapped of 4.50, but I would say the peanut butter and strawberry jelly in that was not as pronounced as it usually is in the cans. But that's all right.
I wonder, was it any colder or any warmer than when you'd had it before?
I don't think so. I think the temperature was pretty much even. So
Okay.
yeah,
Just curious about that.
yeah,
But it's a great beer regardless, right?
It's a fantastic beer. It really is. And then we know the Tailgate Brewery. They have a lot of different locations in the Nashville area. I hit the one that is just open in Murfreesboro, and I know it's still under construction. I could tell going in, but I went in there real quick. I got the Stones River Lager. It's a light lager, about 4.2%. I gave that a 3.75 rating, and they say that's got like citrus and pepper and a hit of bread crust, easy for me to say. I have to say though that the pepper really wasn't overpowering or anything like that. It was just a really good light beer, and needed it for that day because I got to tell you, by the time I got out of there, it was about 1,000 degrees in Nashville.
Yeah, it was pretty hot. Yeah, I remember sweating all day long.
It was.
Yeah, and that's Tailgate's newest location too.
Yep. It is, yeah, and we're happy that they are in the Murfreesboro area because that's a little bit closer to me. And then I had to venture down to Panther Creek Brews because they just had, I believe it was their 4th anniversary, a little over a week ago. You and I actually didn't get a chance to make it when they went there, but I went there, met up with Jeremy and JT. We're gonna be getting those guys on the podcast at some point. It was really just good to sit around with those two and just tell some stories for about 2 hours and drink some beer. And I had their Nailed It Blonde. That was another light and refreshing beer that I had that I really, really loved. So looking forward to heading on back to Panther Creek Brews. And, anytime we've ever been there, I don't think I've ever had a beer that I didn't like.
Oh, we love those guys, right? We were there right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
They opened up during COVID. So we love them, and we've seen them kind of evolve and add more beers as they've gone. So happy they're around, and we can't wait to talk to those guys. And I've said this before, they are beer dudes, aren't they?
They are. They're fantastic. And, JT was talking about because he's originally from Montana and he had just gotten back from there from a big family vacation. So it was funny just talking about, so what do you think the difference is between living in Montana and living in the Nashville area? So I got a lot of good stories out of that. So
good show prep too.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, talk about where you went over the weekend for an anniversary party.
Well, you were in Murfreesboro. I was in Nashville, as you said, and I went down to Cyanide Cider, who we have had on recently, our friend Grayson. They just opened up. Their grand opening was the same day as, Marble Fox, I'm about to talk to about as well. But their grand opening was that day. So me and Stokes and Finnan went over there. And they have this thing he talked about on the podcast where it's what did he call it? A mixing station.
Yeah.
And you get 2 ciders of your choice and then different mixers. So like pineapple and they're like craft sodas or black cherry. I don't have everything in front of me, but so we all got something different. Ginger beer. So you could kind of create your own concoction and stuff. So it was really cool. It was kind of like a science project.
Yeah.
And then we would try different things and different percentages, and it was really neat. And the cider was really good. You and I had some of it. It's that dry cider. They had a Dabinet, a British dry, and a Perry. So those were the 3 ciders that they had. So you can create, I don't know, probably hundreds of different combinations, maybe more than that. So that was cool. And then went over to Marble Fox right after that, which was their 1-year anniversary, coincidentally enough. So they had a fruited sour PB&J. As you were drinking a peanut butter and jelly, I was drinking a peanut butter and jelly. They had just released. It was very good. If you've seen the pictures of Marble Fox on their social media with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich and the beer, that's our buddy Armando. Brew McCoy did those pictures. So shout out to him. And then another one that they had was new for the anniversary party too, was they called it ONE. ONE, and it was a triple New England IPA, and it was fantastic. It was like 10%, and it just great. So they had a DJ in there. The place was busy. They had food outside. People were playing cornhole. It was a great day. Drank a lot of beer, like you said.
Well, it definitely looked great. And before we get back into the Cincinnati brewery scene, also got to talk about, we went to Deep South Growlers, our home away from home, on that Friday, and we met up because Black Abbey was doing a thing there that night, and Carl Meyer, who owns Black Abbey, was there. He was actually a DJ there that night, playing the 80s music, and Liz, I
Did you
don't
start
know.
the dance party, Steve?
I didn't, but I was watching Scott dancing to Rick Astley.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you? I don't recall that at all. I remember being on top of the bar, but I don't remember dancing at all.
Like the one-hit wonders. Anyway, well, we met Carl.
Yeah, there was what do they call it, yacht rock? It was a
Yep.
yacht rock party they had done. Yeah, really cool, really good turnout. Glad to see that.
Well, we met Carl Meyer for the first time, and it was really great to see him. And I'm sure that we'll meet back up with him at some point. But anyway, changing topics, let's head to Cincinnati because that's where Liz is, and we want to talk to her all about the breweries and the brewery scene in Cincinnati. And so, Liz, you are from there.
Yes.
You've lived there all your life, right?
Yeah, minus a small little stint on the East Coast. The majority of my life I've been in Cincinnati. Born and raised,
Yeah.
proud Cincinnati, and love it.
And I've lived in Nashville for about 25 years. And it's interesting because Cincinnati has always been a really big beer town, but now I tell people this all the time that have not been. Can you quantify how big of a craft beer town Cincinnati really is?
Well, I looked up a few just to make sure I didn't misquote myself. We currently have around 80 breweries in the greater Cincinnati area. So I think I told you guys this when I saw you not that long ago, that you can throw a stone and hit another brewery, and they're all great. So you really can't go wrong. Come here for a weekend, check out a couple. You're never going to get them all, but that just means you can come back and try more. I do have some that are still, on my list to do. And some of that is some of the, regular breweries who are kind of the, resurgence in the OTR area, have branched off and had, more than one location. So there are some multiple locations I haven't been to. But there's just a couple I haven't been to because I just haven't been in that neighborhood yet, but it's on my list and I need to get there. So I do have a checkbox list of things I do need to get to.
So, Liz, you talk about that, and that area is known as the tri-state, and so it's not just Cincinnati, it's also like northern Kentucky. There's a bunch of counties up there, not just like Cincinnati, but it's like 3 or 4 counties north that also have a lot of those breweries as well. And, some of them I've checked off my list, others that I haven't, but it's just, again, it is so amazing that, as you say, there's so many of them there, and they're all really good.
We are very passionate about our beer in Cincinnati, and it's been a long time, a long, long time. I know we kind of started our brewing tradition back in the 1800s, and it's a very, very German settled area, which I think is where we get a lot of this beer heritage from. But I did look up a fun fact because I think you guys will enjoy this, that in the 1800s in Cincinnati, we drank more beer per capita than any other city in the country. And it was 2.5 times the national average. And then in 1890 alone, there were 300 saloons, and over a dozen breweries down in the OTR area. So, one of the oldest saloons that's still around is Arnold's. If you guys haven't been to Arnold's, that's still there standing today. You can still check it out. So
how about that?
Yeah, but yeah, 2.5 per capita. Hey,
that's
we
the place you want to
beer.
be, isn't it? It's the place you want to be, isn't it? If you're a beer drinker.
Yeah. So
that is so great. So, what would you say, Liz, is like for your criteria when you're going to a brewery? Like what would you say like makes up your criteria of what you really love? Not just the beer, but this is going to bring me back. What are some of the things that you think that kind of bring you back to each brewery time after time?
I think I'm looking not only for good beer, but just, the people, the ambiance, where are you? My favorite local watering hole brewery is Brink Brewery, and that's in College Hill. It is a smaller brewery, but it's a nice experience. You get to chat They recently expanded their patio out back, so they have some good spots to sit indoors, outdoors. And it's just a good, nice area. But then you have places like Braxton and Rhinegeist. I love their rooftops. So there's nothing like drinking a beer while watching a sunset over the city. Again, great people at both spots too, but they have also some really fun events going on at all three places too. So I look for a couple of things.
They really do. So this is really hard. I compiled, and at first I thought, nah, I'm not going to do a top 10. Maybe I'll try to narrow it down to a top 5 of my favorite breweries up there. And
That's
so,
hard.
yeah, so we can compare our lists, and I'm going to go through these kind of really quickly. So because I am the driver of this podcast and co-host, I'm cheating on my first one. All right. My number one is going to be Rhinegeist and Braxton. They have to be my number one because I love them both almost equally. And there's so many reasons for it. Like Rhinegeist, you walk in and you go, I'm just in an epic place. Like as soon as you walk in and you're just standing there, it's like, this is like an epic place to come to drink craft beer. And then you go up on that rooftop. And then of course there are so many beers, that they have. I mean, I forgot to look on my Untapped app, but the last time I looked at what I rate beer, and I don't rate every one of my beers, but I've rated probably about 50 or so of beers, from Rhinegeist. And then you get over into Braxton. I know they got several locations and they're opening another one in Union, Kentucky soon. And we had, we had them on not long ago, but, Scott and I can't get away from the rooftop there in Covington. I mean, every time I go there, it's just incredible.
It's amazing. They have done such a great job with that rooftop. And not only for your beer connoisseurs, they have branched out to make sure that they are encompassing all of the tastes and palates of people in the area. They recently redid their cocktail menu with a local mixologist, Molly Wellman. She used to own Japs. And she came in and redid their whole cocktail menu, and they have a couple of those cocktails on tap as well. So you can get some of those. They have some fun names. One is called Fresh Off 75. It's a French 75. So, it's unique. They reach out to more than just your beer drinkers so that, hey, if you got someone in the group that doesn't drink beer, they have options. So, it's nice to have that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of more breweries are starting to do that. So love the Rhinegeist and Braxton. My other one that I'm going to put in there, because now I've been there twice, and every time we go there, it seems like we're there the whole afternoon, is Sonder. And I don't know, and Liz, I would love to get your take on this, because Sonder, they have two locations now. They have one north of town in Westchester, and then their main location in Mason. Do you think Sonder gets as much attention in the Cincinnati area as I'm giving it right now, as being a really good brewery?
I would say Cincinnati is known for kind of its little pocket neighborhoods. So,
yeah,
we have a little pocket neighborhoods all over the city. And because Sonder is up by Mason is a huge suburban community. I have friends who that's like their favorite spot to go after their kids' t-ball game. Like they're all there. There's space for the kids to run around outside while they're sipping on some beers and talking about if Timmy was really out or not at the plate. So
yeah, I think the day we were there when we met our friends Elizabeth and Keith up there, there was a big group of soccer kids that were there the whole afternoon, but yeah, I can't say enough things about Sonder. I've loved them. I first got hooked on to their cans before I even went there, and I heard so many great things. So whenever I go up there, especially when Scott and I do now the annual brewery and baseball tour, Sonder's on the list. I'm like, no, this is non-negotiable. Got to go.
Have you been to both locations?
I have not. I've been past the other one in Westchester, but I haven't been to that one yet, and I think it's maybe a little bit smaller. Is that right?
I have only been to the Mason one, and I think I was
Okay.
only a couple of weeks ahead of you guys from trying that. And I pilgrimaged there because they had the blue ice cream. Like I would like to reminisce from childhood and going to get blue ice cream at Kings Island. the Smurf cone. In other news, it doesn't taste like Smurfs. So that's good news.
It's also not blue.
No, it's not as blue, but then
Yeah.
I wonder if that was just the batch I had, because you and I had it the same weekend or not that far apart. And I was expecting it to be a little bit more blue, but I don't know. Maybe, sometimes it's darker versus lighter. Could be per batch.
Could be, yeah. Well, and so rounding out my other ones, 16 lots. Been there a couple of times now. Love that place. I mean, the beer is great, but I mean, come on, that view. That view is spectacular. I mean, you weren't there that night when we went over there, all of us, but I mean, we sat out even after they closed, and you probably saw some of the pictures that we were taking of the Ohio River and the bridges and everything else. And I mean, 16 lots. I don't know honestly if they're and we'll talk about rooftops and stuff like that and the breweries, but I don't know honestly if there's another brewery in Cincinnati that has just that kind of picturesque as you're sitting outside.
I think if you're looking for riverfront, I mean, that is definitely on the Kentucky side in Newport. Right up front, you have a beautiful view of the Cincinnati skyline. For those of you who live in Cincinnati, that used to be the old Jefferson Hall back in the day. So they had bands play there. So it was kind of interesting to see that remodeled as a brewery versus an old haunt. But on the Ohio side of the river, if you're looking over towards Kentucky, you do have the Moorline Lager House sitting right up there on the riverfront, near the Red Stadium. So you just have a different view because you're looking from the opposite side of the river. But that's a decent one too. But, we love ourselves a good Cincinnati skyline. So it's easy to say from 16 lots, they have a pretty great view.
And we love ourselves the Skyline chili. We have to throw that in there too.
We do. I'm a Skyline girl. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know if Scott had ever heard of Three Ways before we started talking about them in that capacity.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, just
no, we
that.
every year we go up though. We do stop at Skyline and I partake and I've learned to like it. I never disliked it, but I've learned to like it because I never had it prior to us doing that
Cheers
trip.
To that.
He got his indoctrination through me because anybody that knows me in Nashville, they're all like, there goes Steve again with the Skyline chili, blah 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 blah. And Scott was kind of like that too. And then I'm like, all right, so we're going to Skyline. And I had taken some pictures, that's been about 5 or 6 years ago. And, I'm like, man, it's all about the cheese. You got to keep piling on the cheese.
Hang on.
Every time I go, you can add more cheese. Make it a Skyway.
How could you add more cheese? I get it half. I get it half cheese now. I get the light because I take cheese off. There's so much.
Oh no, add more. You need some for your crackers.
Yes, yeah. I do get the habanero cheese. That's good. On the conies.
There you go.
I do like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So don't you think he needs to live a little though? I mean, he only goes to Skyline once or twice a year, and he's like, I can't have any more cheese. I'm like, why not?
You need to make him some Skyline dip because I think you did tell me that the cans of Skyline are in the Kroger grocery stores in Nashville.
They are. Yep.
You need the dip. It's really great for football watching come fall. Everybody needs their own. Don't share.
Yeah. Yes, Steve. Maybe some dip.
Make you some, yeah.
some Skyline dip. I will say the cheese is really good. It's really light. It's like really thin and light, and it's really good. It's just, I don't know, 3 feet of it is a little too much for me. But what do I know?
It's okay. You'll get there.
That's right.
Every time you'll take a little bit less off.
Just a little. Okay.
Exactly. Well, I'll throw in a couple other breweries, and then you guys can tell me yours. But I gotta put Highwire in there. In Norwood, Factory 52. I mean, that place is so tremendous. And we have a Highwire here, so I love their beer and I love the Highwire. But I mean, just going up on that, basically the rooftop level, overseeing the pavilion and all that. I mean, it's just, I don't know about you guys, but I think it's incredible.
We're pro rooftop here. Rooftop. That spot's really cool. It's new and they took over it's in the Norwood area in Cincinnati. They took up over the old Factory 52. It's still called Factory 52, but it was an old U.S. playing card factory where they made U.S. playing cards. So It's just a neat spot, and they took some of the original architecture in some of the surrounding apartments around there and tried to keep the outside brick exterior as they're creating some new stuff on the inside. I think there's also, besides high wire, there's a fretboard back there. And then they have what's called the Gatherall, which is a huge kind of almost like food court on the inside with a bunch of different restaurants. So you can go pick up your dinner of choice, meet your friends, grab a beer, and there's plenty of outdoor spots to sit from both breweries in the middle. So
I believe they have a pretty good barbecue restaurant there.
yes. Did you try it?
I did. Scott made fun of me.
Oh my God, did he? Gee.
That same barbecue restaurant, you can get macaroni and cheese with brisket on top. So,
I got a barbecue sandwich and mac and cheese, and it was tremendous. It was absolutely tremendous.
I don't think his system could have handled the brisket on top of the mac and cheese, the way he was going at that sandwich.
I ordered it once and did not realize the portion it came in. It was more of like a family portion. I said, okay, well, as I'm taking that back to the table, like, does anybody want some mac and cheese? Because I just ordered enough for everybody. Not knowing, but it's okay. I had leftovers, so.
It's great.
That little area in there, though, I don't, what do they call it? Warehouse?
52.
52.
Factory
like
52.
Factory 52.
That's it. Yeah. And it's got multiple things under one roof. Like, I don't know what the count is, but different restaurants, and obviously fretboard is there, and it's really cool how they've done that under one roof and have multiple options. Obviously, barbecue is one of them.
It is. Well, and again, I don't want to leave anybody out as far as like my favorite breweries, and if I had to list out, like, I could put everybody as number one, but rounding out like a top five, you're going to be happy with me, Liz, because since we are West Siders, and I've been there probably 5 or 6 times, and I've enjoyed all their beer.
Yeah.
Drink. Yeah.
That's my brewery. Yeah. That's my number one.
Yeah. And I wrote down a couple of, not for every single one, but, my favorite that I've had at Brink is the, Father G's Bees. It's a honey beer. It's a 7.1% honey beer, and I rated it as a 4.25 on Untapped. So I do love, the beer that I've gotten at Brink before.
That's an awesome beer. It's a honey brown ale, and it actually, the local pastor at St. Clair Parish, is also a beekeeper. And that is where the honey comes for Father G's Bees. It's named after Father George Jackman. So Father G's Bees is from his honey harvest, and they use that. I think they said about 40 pounds of honey goes into that, into the different batches they're making. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
That's
I like that they take Brink does a lot of, local collabs with just the other, businesses on the street. It's Hamilton Avenue. So if there's a new business that comes in, they'll collab and do a beer with them. Like I think right now they have, one with Tortilla Garcia. I think it's Garcia Lime. So they just try to, get the neighborhood involved, in the brewing process, and, you can have that spot's food while you're enjoying their beer, kind of. So
fantastic.
Very cool.
So besides Brink, what would you say are some of your other top breweries that you really love, and probably some of the ones you return to quite often up there?
Well, yeah, I said Brink's probably my number one. I think right up there, you already mentioned these are Braxton and Rheingeist. I don't know how you don't walk in there and just go, wow. It's truly an experience, and it was kind of fun to watch you guys walk in and, just, whoa, it's, if you haven't been there before, it's very cool to see people go there for the first time, just to kind of see it. Rheingeist is a huge open room, and I don't think you realize when you're outside this building how truly big it is on the inside. And they can fit a lot of people in there. They have a lot of events. And they'll have things throughout the year. I think last fall they set up for Cider Palooza, and they had full swings, like in a playground inside the brewery. So you could swing from the rafters. So they're always cooking up something there. It's great. I think probably my favorite event I've been to at Rheingeist recently was, during Bachfest. And Bachfest is a whole big deal in Cincinnati. It kind of celebrates spring. And it's usually the first weekend in March. And Rheingeist has what they call the Sausage Queen Festival. So people can nominate themselves to become the Sausage Queen. Anybody can, gender does not apply. And then they got to go through kind of like a talent show. They go through a talent show process, and, they have some local Cincinnati celebrities on the judging panel. And it's just, the whole thing is awesome. I had my soft pretzel and my Bach beer while I'm watching this festival, and it was so fun. Got everybody together, checking out the brewery, checking out this amazing, contest that I never knew they had until recently. And if you win the Sausage Queen Festival, you get to march in the opening day parade, as the Sausage Queen, the reigning Sausage Queen. So, hey, big things happen. So
it is. And they just had their anniversary party too, just recently, their 11th. So congratulations to them.
Yeah. I also have a little love for Rheingeist because I think I told you guys I'm a huge Cincinnati Bearcat fan. That is my team. I'm an alum from there, and, will forever be a diehard Bearcat. And they have Cincy Light, which is the NIL beer for the university. So it's a nice, light, crisp, all season beer, great for tailgating, great for summer parties. It's red and black, my two favorite colors. So I gotta love that they're supporting a local university and trying to keep, the love for local going there.
Had it for the first time when I was there.
Yeah, we both like that beer, honestly. For a light beer, it's really good. I want to go back real quick to something you said when we were talking about Rheingeist and when you first walk into the place. Yeah. I think the official term should be "holy shit."
Really?
It's been mentioned on here, and even Chris Shields, who was on here, said he walks behind people and he hears that, and I think that should be the official term when you walk into the tap room and it just opens up in front of you.
It's an experience, and it's really cool to see people go through that experience. And they always have it set up different ways. They always have cool events there too. Right now you can also go. They have these candlelit concerts. I don't know if you guys have those in Nashville. I'm sure it's kind of a trending national thing. Where they have a string quartet play, like, I went to one that was called From Bach to Beatles. And so they were playing a bunch of Beatles songs, with a string quartet, and it was all candlelit, and it was in an event room in Rheingeist. So you're at a brewery drinking beer, listening to some cool Beatles throwback songs, all in candlelit. It was really cool. So they have all sorts of stuff going there all the time. It's, like I said, it's huge. And that's not necessarily a Rheingeist sponsored event, but they do have that there. So.
Yeah, I like their creativity. They even said, I think we talked about this when we met up and we were talking, the dinosaur that they had put in there. Remember Chris Shields told us about that?
Yeah.
The dinosaur skeleton they had set up in there.
I'm sad I missed that.
Because the place was so big and where they wanted to put it either wasn't ready or it wouldn't fit or something. So Rheingeist was really like the only place they could really put it, and they set it up fully throughout the brewery and the tap room. So that was pretty cool to see.
And I think you guys, while you were there, got to experience the vending machine pizza.
We didn't partake, but we had heard about it, and I finally went and found it. Cause I just kept forgetting. I kept forgetting while I was there. I said, wait, I'm going to go check this vending machine out. And it's there. There's a pizza vending machine there, which is really cool.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, we had Chris Shields on because I had heard before I came on that was like a big thing. Somebody had told, so I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, ask about the vending machine pizza. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it's a thing.
Yeah. I was just going to say, he said, remember when he said that they got a lot of activity on that machine, like at 2 a.m., like 2 to 4 a.m. in the morning, because it was truck drivers and stuff coming in. They didn't even realize that was going to be a market for them on the vending machine.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway.
I like that, though. It's a tidbit. I also love Braxton. I think, we talked a little bit about the rooftop. They just have a really good spot right there in Covington. It's kind of what we would generally call the bridal district almost, because Hotel Covington is there. They have a lot of weddings in that area, and that area is kind of building up, but you can it's got some good foot traffic, some good restaurants around it. They do have a Dewey's Pizza inside there. So, who doesn't love a good Dewey's Pizza? I don't know if you've both had that yet. But locally we love that pizza.
I've had Dewey's, and I know that new location that they're going to be opening up in Union, Kentucky is going to have Dewey's and Grater's ice cream in there. I mean, it's pretty wild.
And Braxton does love to do collabs with graders. They have a black raspberry chip, and then they came out in March with a lemon meringue pie, which was pretty good. I also got to try some of the variants they had on tap, and I think my favorite out of the variants was the lemon raspberry. So it was just a nice little flavor kick to that lemon. So.
Really good.
Mm-hmm. Very good. If we're looking at others, gosh, there's a ton in Cincinnati. I mean, again, you really can't go wrong. Some of my other favorites, I love Northern Row, which I think I told you guys about. It's behind Rheingeist, in OTR. So not only is it a brewery, it's also a distillery. So they brew and distill there. They have food, so it's kind of like a triple threat. You can have a nice patio kind of in between some brick buildings, kind of feel like you're in the middle of the city. Outside, inside, they have some cool ambiance. They have a rowing boat hanging from the ceiling. It's also one of those big buildings that you don't realize how big it is until you get inside. But I appreciate the variety that they have. So that's a good spot. I love Little Miami Brewing. Have you guys been there?
That is on my bucket list of going there. I have not been.
You're just sitting on a different river. So, we've talked about Ohio river views. This is on the Little Miami. And, they have an indoor and an outdoor. But if you grab your beer, you can go sit outside in some Adirondack chairs and just sit on the river. You can watch some people in the summer canoe or kayak by. Some of the little kayak canoe groups are right there. Some people get out of their kayak and canoe and come up and have a beer before they get back on the river. So it's just a cool spot that you got to see. It's, great spot. They also have pizza. I'm seeing a trend here. I don't know. How do you hate beer and pizza?
Yeah, in Little Miami, you've mentioned it to us a couple of times. We've heard it from other people too. So the fact that we haven't been there is almost, it's a shame, but it is on the list.
You almost have to be over in that area because it is way on the east side.
It is.
And so you got to plan your day, especially if you're visiting.
Now, if you are visiting Cincinnati and want to hit out that side of town, because it's in the Milford area, there is the Cincinnati Nature Center that you can, I think it's like $7 to go for a hike for the day. And if I'm wrong on that, please don't quote me. But they have really nice hikes. You can hop in for beer and lunch afterwards. Milford has a cool little downtown area that has some other food spots. And across the street from Little Miami is also Cincinnati Distilling that they just completed not that long ago. So they're distilling their own bourbon and all sorts of stuff over there. The still's really cool to see. It's pretty tall. So if you are going over there, there's a couple of spots to see in that area. So
Scott, not to take away your thunder, because we probably mentioned a couple of the breweries that would round out some of your favorites, right?
Yeah, pretty much all of them. But hey, I won't rehash those, but those are all on my list for the obvious reasons that you guys just mentioned. But a couple I'll mention is, and we've been, Bad Tom Smith, really like that place.
Yeah.
Mad Tree is always a staple, right? We've been to both, but, you can't beat it.
Have you been to the Alcove? Because that's the one I haven't been to yet. That's on my list of places to go.
Is that the greenhouse one?
Yeah, it's the one downtown.
Yeah,
it's kind of downtown.
The one in OTR.
Yeah, funny story. We walk in the front door, and I guess there's a restaurant it's part of a restaurant or something. So we walk in the front door, and we're not sure we're in the right place. And we're like, we don't belong here because it looked like a little higher end restaurant. We're in our t-shirts and shorts and whatnot. And they say, oh no, you want to be in the greenhouse. So they kind of walk us through and into the greenhouse area. And it was really great.
It really is great. What I will say is that I think for somebody that if you're looking for a lot of variety of craft beer from them, you would want to go to their Oakley location.
And that's a really cool building too. They kind of have like exposed brick outside that you're kind of inside a building, but outside a building. And they actually tent that in the wintertime. So it's nice that you have more indoor space. And I love that Mad Tree is also really into giving back. Like they're really good about planting trees. They're very into the environment. So they do a lot for the city from that perspective.
But that was one of the original ones that when I started going with Steve up there making this annual trip, Mad Tree might have been the first or one of the very first ones. So it kind of stands out for me. But obviously for all the other reasons you just mentioned, they're good. Real quick, Mount Carmel, Street Side, who we just visited when we were there for the first time. But both great places too. Again,
side.
kind of have to be in that area.
Have either of you watched Stranger Things?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They have Demigorgon Day at Streetside,
No.
where they brew a bunch of stout varieties. So that's usually, I think, in October. So that's an interesting day to try a bunch of beer.
That's cool. We'll get back there again. Those were great spots. So we may have covered half of the breweries in Cincinnati.
Well, there's 80. I don't know if we can.
I know.
I've actually said that if you wanted to go to every brewery that is open in the Cincinnati area, and as I said in the beginning of this podcast, so you would literally have to go, I'm gonna throw out like the county lingo. So it's like Hamilton County, which is Cincinnati, and then you got Butler County, Warren, and Claremont County, and then you got probably 2 or 3 counties in northern Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
All of those alone, as you said, there's probably almost 80 breweries just in those counties, and it's really not that far of road trips, but it would probably take a person, if you went up every day and you did, I don't know how many breweries you could get to in a day, to tackle all those, it would probably take you about 3 weeks, I would think.
You'd have to factor in if Uber drivers were available too. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've had that issue.
Well, and I think the other place that you guys head up here, which is always a favorite one of mine to talk about, is Listerman's.
Yes.
Just because not only do they brew beer there, they also sell ingredients for you to take home and brew your own beer. So you can enjoy the beer that they have already brewed, or you can go back and shop for ingredients and ask the guys what you want to make and what my goals are and what do I want to accomplish, and they're there to help you. So it's a cool, unique spot there too.
It's been interesting because Listerman has undergone a lot of changes over the last few years with ownership. When we first started going there, and I think it was actually Scott had been going through the Cincinnati area through Ohio, and somebody had recommended Listerman, and I hadn't been there yet. And so I went up there, I was visiting family, and I was like, I have time to go to Listerman for one beer. And they were doing more high octane beers probably 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, you'd go in there and most of their tap list would be 9% or above. They've brought it down quite a bit, and now they're doing their own food there too.
Well, I kind of wonder if a little bit of that is as craft beer has trended throughout the age ranges. Listerman's is right across the street from Xavier University. Probably trying to keep those kids safe as they're enjoying their wonderful product.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and they had a second location right down the street at one point, and I know it was more of a restaurant themed thing, but it didn't quite work out. It seems.
So I know we've talked about some of the rooftops, the ones that I have written down. Of course, Rheingeist in Braxton and Highwire, but we also can't forget Brewdog, which is downtown, and we've been there a couple times too. Brewdog
does have a pretty epic patio up top. You have to climb a lot of stairs to get there, but you can make it. It's a great place to be in the summer. Depending on what night you're there, occasionally you can, catch some fireworks from the Red Stadium downtown on Firework Friday. You can see a little bit of that going on. Occasionally they have some concerts over, by the casino you can hear. So yeah, you can see all sorts of stuff from that rooftop. Just, what's going on in the neighborhood. Concerts.
I feel like, and I've said this to a few people, I feel like Cincinnati, and I'm sure there's other areas. I know, Scott, you go out to Denver sometimes for the Great American Beer Festival, and I think there's some other cities that are like this. I feel like Cincinnati has captured, and Liz, the experience of going to a brewery. It's not just come on in and drink our beer. It is the experience, because we've been out to 50 West before, and they've got pickleball out there, and they've got, volleyball, and there's so many other breweries up there that have really started to capture these kinds of things as well.
I think kind of the nice thing of a lot of the Cincinnati breweries too, and you just mentioned 50 West, that's a pretty family friendly brewery. A lot of those volleyball courts during the day are sandcastle making for the kids. They're out there digging and making some wonders while the parents again are enjoying a beer. So, it's nice. They can take that same area and transfer from family friendly today to maybe some more volleyball leagues at night for adults. So they do a good job.
Your Instagram page
Yes.
is called Every Day I'm Bubbling.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about craft beer in the last however many minutes. You do other things as well on that page.
I do.
Can you describe kind of what your page is? And I see that you go to events, you go to distilleries, you drink bourbon, you drink wine. Does that coincide with kind of the name of your page?
Yeah. I mean, this was one of those ingenious ideas in Porto Backyardo during 2020 when I was at that unique resort. No one else was at that. It was very exclusive. That we spent a lot of time having some cocktails or beer or whatnot in the backyard, and thus the name Every Day I'm Bubbling kind of was born out of that. I do have a passion for a lot of different kinds of drinks. Beer happens to be one of them. But I'm willing to go explore, try an event, see what, anything new to experience. It's kind of my favorite part about it. And then, not only are you getting to try some great drinks, you get to meet some great people. Would have never met you guys had I not found out that Elizabeth and Keith were coming down to Cincinnati. So it's kind of a really cool way to make connections. I know we like to call it the Beerstagram world. But it's been really awesome. If you're traveling somewhere, you can throw a quick little like, hey, I'm heading to Denver. Does anybody have any recommendations? And, I'll get some brewery recommendations. I'll usually get like a winery or two recommendation from some of the wine people I follow. Just different spots or a cool like bar or restaurant we want to go to for food or cocktails. So I think it's really cool to check all that out and, have that kind of connection.
Yeah. And with the page and even with the name of your page, it lends itself to all of those things. Right? It doesn't have to be one single thing. It kind of covers everything.
No. And I like it all. So, I think a lot of people definitely have a favorite. I like it all. But I have favorites within each like category. So, I don't know. You can have your cake and eat it too. You can have the world. So why limit yourself?
Yeah. And on your profile, it's got your description stuff, and it's got the emoji or whatever for every type of drink there is. You got your wine, you got your champagne, you got your cocktails, you got your beer, which I was like, that sums it up for me. I look at that and like, she kind of covers everything.
Yeah.
And you take, like I said, you take a lot of great pictures too.
Photography is a hobby. So, a lot of what I capture is from my cell phone, but, if I have more time, I do have a Nikon and I can go out and take some fancy pictures. But, we're in an age where it's a little easier to do that on a cell phone. So I would probably say less of my photos come from my fancier camera or equipment, but sometimes they do. But it's just fun. I like it. It's one of those things that who knew in 2020 where we were sipping on some cocktails in Porto Backyardo that this was going to turn into what it turned into. So I'm excited to see where else this takes me, but sky's the limit. So
yeah, you're doing a great job. If you had to rank, not even rank, but maybe put it in order, what beverage do you prefer? Is it beer, wine? Do you have an order what you prefer? Does cocktails
I feel like
come
it
first?
depends what event I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a favorite per order, but okay. So for example, my favorite thing to have like Sunday morning, I want a Bailey's and coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So like I have made it the whole week. I'm going to sit there and sip on my coffee and I'm going to pour some Bailey's, or if I don't have Bailey's, something similar to that, Kahlua, Ryan's, I like something like that, or mimosa. I'm not exclusive, and mimosas are good too. I love a good beer in a ballpark. So if you're at a sporting event, I want a beer in a ballpark. I think that's like a quintessential experience. So, that's my favorite thing in a ballpark, beer in a ballpark, beer in a stadium. I like to do that.
You're going to join us for the next Reds outing we do, right?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love a good cocktail too. It's really cool to see different, the way people come up with drinks. There's some crazy good bartenders out there in the world that have a high following that it's impressive what they come up with. And sometimes you just get a little dangerous in your own kitchen and start crafting. So, I love that. I went to Napa in January, and that was my first time out there. Had no idea what was I getting myself into, but that is a really cool spot. Very different. Learn not only about wine, but like science facts about microbiomes and climates and how they grow the grapes and whatnot. So I'm if I go somewhere and I want to learn about the area, I like to take a tour, learn about it. I just did a bourbon tour not that long ago, since Cincinnati is at like the southwest corner of Ohio, and we're right above Kentucky, and there's that whole bourbon trail, which, man, I need to start taking advantage of that. So that's my new goal, hit up more spots on the bourbon trail. But we went to a couple friends of mine went to Augusta Distilling to check out their bourbon. Really good. And of course, I like the fancy stuff. It's one of those things, they're like, how much percentage is this? How old is that? And you're like, no, I like the stuff that's the higher quality.
You had a really good post about that too. You had a really good post about that.
It was so cool. And I don't even think I can do it justice. And they are just in also kind of like trying to expand their outdoor area too. So some of the stuff was under construction, so I didn't even get to see the whole finished product, but really cool spot. The guys who run the tours have a good job of like kind of running you through what you're looking for. And you can even pull from the barrels that you're tasting. You can take home your own bottle from what you've tasted, and if you don't want to buy one that's in stock out back. So it's kind of cool.
That's a great experience. And you also have New Riff right there too.
Yes.
Where you guys are.
I actually haven't been there, but that's also on the list. They have some ones that are on the northern side of Kentucky called the Beeline. So that's like another little thing you can check off, some of the Beeline distilling.
Hey, so one of the reasons we wanted you on, your knowledge obviously of the Cincinnati area, but we want to be more diverse in who we're talking to. And women in craft beer is important. And I kind of want to get your thoughts on where you think women in craft beer are. It's a weird way to put that. Do you think the craft beer community is welcoming to women?
You're going to make me put on my thinking cap, because I don't know if we do have a female-owned brewery in Cincinnati. I don't know. I mean, I think just within this community, I feel like we're pretty welcome. I mean, I can go out with a bunch of girlfriends and have a beer, and no one's looking at me sideways for having a beer versus having a cocktail. So, I love the fact that, Cincinnati's pretty much welcoming, come on in, join our brewery, have a beer, what can we pour you? And like any brewery, they're always really good about letting you try everything. But I do, as a female, if I see a female-owned brewery, I would love to stop and support it. So, I know where was I? Last summer I was in Myrtle Beach, and there was a female-owned brewery and a veteran-owned brewery that I had to make a point to stop to. Just, you want to support the ladies out there. So, and it was a great spot. I had a great time there. It was actually called Tidal Creek Brewing in Myrtle Beach. If you're there, I highly suggest hitting it up. They had also not only great beers, but they had, what was a coffee flight with, again, I like my Baileys and coffee. So there was a coffee flight in the morning to go with my fancy brunch too. So I had the best of both worlds, of a couple of different things going on there. So
could you extend that into, say, even the social media realm with women? I see a lot of women with craft beer Instagram accounts. And I love it. And we know several of them. We talked about one here earlier. So are you seeing that's a huge thing, with women just being in craft beer and with the social media accounts?
I mean, I think so. I think I see pretty much an equal amount of both males and females, across Instagram. I mean, that's the platform I'm basically on. Multiple kinds. I know there's the beer babes out there who are brewing and have a whole group going. But yeah, you do see people kind of form friendships through that. Again, Instagram has so many possibilities. You can meet so many people. But yeah, I haven't had a personally a negative experience, so, I guess I'm lucky. But yeah, I would say overall it's been a good thing.
Yeah, it's good. And I think maybe that's the norm now. You shouldn't even have to think about it, right? Being as a woman in the beer industry, or not even the beer, but you just being in the beer community.
Very much so. Although I can't say I've ever tried to open up my own brewery, so I don't know what that's like. Do I have dreams? Yes, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Call us if you do. We'll be there.
I need to talk my dad into it, basically.
There you go. Get him behind you.
A little father-daughter bonding activity. So
Nice.
we'll see. But yeah, I mean, the beer community is pretty cool. Gotten to meet a lot of different people. And actually, I was just thinking about this too. I have a shirt from a gal I met on Instagram that says "Real women drink beer." So I laugh when I wear that out. Like, no one says anything, but I kind of laugh. It's kind of a fun shirt, you know. on a Sunday afternoon, I'm having a beer.
There you go. I love it.
That's great. So, I want to ask you, any other cities, beer cities, or any other cities you've been to that have a huge beer presence that you've been to that you enjoy? Cincinnati's hard to compete with. I get that. But any other beer cities you've been to, maybe specifically for the beer, or that you were just somewhere and discovered the beer?
I did mention Myrtle Beach. I know that's not what I would call your typical brewery town, but that's probably the most recent vacation I've been on outside of, I said I was in Napa to drink wine. I was shocked that they were like in kind of like a small beach town community. I hit up 6 breweries in a week just to kind of check out their different spots. And some of them were multi-state and some of them were local. And all of those I had gotten recommended just by throwing out a little question box in my stories on Instagram. I had found out about all of those from other beer people or people who vacation down there. So I know that's kind of like an unexpected spot.
You know, sometimes you just go somewhere for another reason and you discover a brewery. Like, you know, I had no idea there was this scene. I would say this. We were in Orlando a few weeks ago, and I looked ahead of time to see what was around, but there's a really good scene there. So maybe not on the people's radar and say, oh, go to Orlando for beer, but you get there and you're like, holy cow, this is good too. Or you just discover a place that's down the street. Right.
I would say too, even if you're like popping in somewhere, you know, for like a weekend, I do like to stop at a brewery and check out, you know, what they have. Take a to-go beer for myself. I have to get a good to-go beer for my dad. He'd be mad at me if I didn't bring him a to-go beer as a souvenir. But, you know, I don't know if I've been somewhere long enough that I would say it would be a craft beer town. Probably, like I said, Myrtle is probably the most recent travel. I really need my vacation this summer. I think that's what that's telling me. I need to go somewhere.
Another thing, come to Nashville.
Come on down. Yeah, we'll show you around.
You know, sometimes you go to a restaurant or a tap room in a town too, and you get to try multiple from local places. And you're like, oh, that's good. That's good. Never heard of this place before. Don't necessarily have to go there, but you realize the beer might be good. You know.
I think the other fun thing too is if you are traveling, you know, and you're trying a beer that you love, then it becomes the fun of trying to find out how you can get that beer back in your home state.
Yes.
You're like, when do you distribute to my state, please? ? I fell in love with this brewery on vacation. See, now you're making me think of another one. Mass Landing in Maine. But I wasn't in Maine when I had it. So of course, I was in the state of New Hampshire and we had it there. And it was at a restaurant with a ton of taps, on burger night. So we just happily randomly tried this beer, but they have, one called Gunner's Daughter, which is a milk stout. And they have up there Gunner's Daughter Day where they have a bunch of variants. So at some point on my list, I will make it to Maine to go to Gunner's Daughter's Day and try the however many variants they have in their multiple tap rooms. But yeah, then it became a thing of, you know, we probably had that probably 3 or 4 years ago for the first time. They just came to Ohio within the last 2 or 3 months. So I've been messaging them like, please come to Ohio. Please come to Ohio. Please come to Ohio.
Yeah, really.
So we were really excited. My aunt called me. She's like, you will never guess what I found at the store. And I was like, yes. So I think it's fun when you go somewhere, find a beer you love, and then, you know, get to see it finally distributed into your home state. So.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, a lot of it is through distribution and they get stuff from distributors and stuff like that. But yeah, we are getting per Deep South Growler. Burial is my favorite brewery out of Asheville, North Carolina. And they're getting some Burial. So I don't know if the distribution lines are getting opened up into Tennessee. God,
Oh.
I hope they
We
do.
can only hope. Yeah.
God, I hope they do. Hey, but along the
How far
lines,
is the borderline to get there?
it's a 5-hour drive from here
Oh.
to get to get Asheville. Well, it's well worth it, but we haven't had any here. There was a blip one time. We got a little bit of it, but go back to as we were just talking about beers that you can't get in your hometown. Have you experienced trading beers with anyone? You know, shipping in and out of state. Oh, I mean, if the law's listening, we don't ship over state lines, but.
Oh, I can actually say never have I ever. No. But I am chatting with a friend on Instagram about doing that. So, I can't say that I've done it yet, but I'm going to branch out and, test out what's out there. It's kind of another great way to see, some different beers from some different areas without putting some, miles on your car
Right.
or your
Absolutely.
airline miles.
We're gonna get you some as well. I'm gonna make myself know. We're gonna ship you some random stuff from here, some Nashville stuff and stuff maybe you can't get.
That'd be awesome. I'll have to send how many Rheingau beers back to you guys. Tally them up.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Well,
there's like a new. Yeah, I was gonna say maybe there's like a new release or something. You're like, oh, we gotta get that.
Yeah. I think actually that Pretty Bird can came in a multi-pack release for this summer. I think I was trying to ask you guys if that came down in Tennessee, but you said no, correct?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that down here. I think
No.
and I've had it, but I've had it up there, up to where you are.
And I'm going to rate the Pretty Bird pretty high because it was pretty good.
It's one of those that sneaks up on you. I mean, like I said, the can art is amazing, and you're like, oh, this is going to be great. And then when the beer's great on top of the can art, that's a 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, that's a win-win.
Okay, so you were talking about I do love events and I do love attending the cool things that are happening around Cincinnati. I was talking a little bit with you guys about this before. Just looking up some of the cool tours, the history tours that you can find in the city of Cincinnati. So if you're coming here for like a weekend, there is one called Afternoon with the Beer Barons at Spring Grove Cemetery, which is kind of like an arboretum cemetery park, like in Cincinnati. They have beautiful graves, beautiful, trees. They do a lot of great work there to keep the upkeep there. But we have a lot of famous beer people in the city in the history of Cincinnati beer who are buried there. So that's coming up in August. You can buy tickets for it, and they'll tour you around Spring Grove and talk to you a little bit about beer history and some of those people who are buried there. And they have some food trucks and some beer. And name dropping, some of the Moorline family, the Mulhauser family, and the Hawk family are all buried in Spring Grove. So just a little Cincinnati history if you're looking for events. There's also American Legacy Tours. So they do a lot of the underground tours in Cincinnati and the old loggering tunnels. So there's a couple of tours that you can do. I think I saw that there was one called the Hidden Caverns Tour and the Queen City Underground. So there's a couple there that you can see. And they do take you underground. You get to walk in the loggering tunnels. And then the Brewing Heritage Trail, which is actually, I learned the other day, they have signs up kind of throughout Cincinnati. There's one in Great American Ballpark that tells you a little bit about the history of beer around there too. But there's an app. You can download the app for the Brewing Heritage Trail, Google Play or Apple. And some of those guided brewery tours and events are on that app. And then they also have a walking tour that you can follow too. So say, maybe paying for one of these tours is not in your budget. They have, self-guided walking tour. You can walk around the city and it points out different buildings and historical facts, and that's all in that app. So I thought that was kind of cool.
And while we were at Urban Artifact in our trip, and weren't they the ones that discovered, or somebody from Urban Artifact had found the live yeast in the loggering tunnels? Hence
they were telling us about that.
Yeah. Hence and the name is escaping right now, but they're having some kind of festival in town based on that. I think a lot of brewers had signed up to use that yeast in one of their beers. I forget what the name of that was, but
they were telling us that, and that is escaping me right now. But we were there. That was really cool because that was also the spot that had the recording studio in it. It's an old church, and they have the recording studio in the basement. So
that's great.
There was a wedding upstairs, a recording studio in the basement, and you're learning about all sorts of different activities. So
in the brewery, in the church.
And then besides those, we love our festivals. If we can have a beer festival in Cincinnati, we're going to have one. The biggest one is Oktoberfest. We have a big one in the city and then a bunch of small ones throughout the city too. So
it's always a great time. Well, Liz, we appreciate it, and we are so glad that you could join us today on the Cincinnati Takeover Beer Edition craft beer. And we are definitely going to bring you back on here soon. We're very glad that you joined us and you're part of the beer community. And I think you're going to be a part of our podcast sometimes too. Hopefully, if you want to be, we would be happy to have you.
Thank you guys. I have enjoyed hanging and talking beer with you all. And I would love to come back. It's been a good time.
It's very good to see you again. I know we'll be in touch, and certainly when we go back up there. Steve goes more often than I, but we'll definitely connect and drink some more beer.
I think I pointed out to Armando that the Bengals are playing the Titans come December, so I think there's going to be a Nashville trip in the future.
There you go. Well, look for Liz on Instagram at Everyday I'm Bubbling. Look for us at SullivanTuronBreweryAdventures.com. We're also on Spotify. And that's going to wrap things up on this podcast. For Scott Turon and Liz, I'm Steve Sullivan, and this has been the Brewery Underground Podcast.
Cheers.